Hello, Howland Hoover. This is Mr. Hain. This video goes along with fourth grade's Bigfoot project. Now, this video is a little different because it's not necessarily a step-by-step that would go along with the project that you might be doing, because I'm going to be using clay for mine, and you may not have access to it, and that's totally fine. Like I said in the instructions, you can be very creative of how you create your Bigfoot. It could be a drawing, it could be a painting, it could be a large drawing on a piece of large cardboard if you have it, and then display it in your yard, which would be pretty fun. You could move it around. I'm going to show you, I'm going to make this little mini one. It's about 5 inches tall. I'm going to make this out of the clay that we use at school, because I kind of am envisioning this idea of like a little Bigfoot scavenger hunt with these kind of around different places, but I'm still working that out. But now I thought I just would walk you through the steps of how I'm making it. If you have clay, that's great. If you're able to, or you want to try to access clay, I think you can find some on Amazon. Model Magic might work for this. Crayola actually makes an air drying clay that works really well. That, again, might be available online, but you don't have to. Just use whatever you have to be creative with it. Okay. Also, with this, some of the tools that I'll be using. We have some different, sculpting tools. This is just like a needle tool. This is also just like a modeling, carving tool. You could use toothpicks, would work well for like a needle tool, popsicle sticks. Really, again, anything you have. Pencils are actually very versatile for this. And rolling out your clay, I used, because we don't have a rolling pin here. If you have a rolling pin and access to it, check with your parents first. If you're able to roll out your clay with that, that'd be great. But I have this old bottle of silicone here that worked out really well just to roll out my slab of clay. So again, it's about being creative and kind of coming up with the solutions, to your problems that you can. All right, so I'm going to make the plan for these is to make a lot of them. So I'm making them smaller and thinner. So I'll kind of bring the camera down and show you what I'm working on so far with it. So there's my slab of clay. I've rolled it out again, just using the bottle of silicone. Worked out really well for this project. Remember, just like we talked about at school, if you're rolling it out, you definitely want to flip your clay every 2 or 3 rolls, otherwise it's going to stick to whatever it is you're rolling it out on. So the thickness of this, you can see, for example, it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. Okay, if you're rolling out a slab, that might be a helpful size. But again, if it ends up being, an inch thick, if you're using Model Magic or something, that's totally fine. Okay, so here's my little guy that's going to fit on here, my Bigfoot. The first thing I want to do, if you're doing it this route, is draw your Bigfoot, cut it out how you want it to be. Then we're going to lay it on here and use your pencil, again, would be fine, or your needle tool, and you're just going to carefully make an outline, not going all the way through the clay. I'm just making a little mark for where I'm going to then cut it out after. If you try to go through it like your clay, cutting it with this on here, you're just going to kind of run into problems because you might get hung up on the paper, it might go underneath. It's better just to kind of make your marks and then use some different tools to cut it out. So go along here. Just kind of tracing. I'm going to reuse this paper as long as I can. If you make your original drawing on a thicker piece of paper, like a Bristol board or a heavier watercolor paper, it's going to last a little bit longer. This is just our drawing paper. Actually, this was like one of the first couple sketches I did of the Bigfoot, and I liked it the best, so I decided to use it. But I made copies, meaning I traced it onto heavier paper first before I did this. In case it got ruined, I could always spend the time to cut it out in that heavier paper. Alright, so once that's here, I just go ahead and lift my Bigfoot. So now I have my shape. I'm going to keep that up here. You could use the needle tool to cut these out. We do have our clay fettling knives that we can use for these. You could also use your toothpick, would probably work out well. All right, so when I go to cut this, what we want to make sure that we do is we are going to cut it out almost in sections. So I just go straight down through the clay. I'm pulling this, okay, and I'm just going to pull that out here to kind of get it away from the from my Bigfoot. You also want to make sure you try to keep your knife straight up and down, because if you go in at an angle, now you're going to have an angled edge. Okay, so take your time, cut this. I'm actually going to switch over to an X-Acto knife. You would have to check with your parents if you're able to use one of these, but I'm just using it just for the fine detail. And if you miss a little bit on your edges, so I'm just kind of cutting this up and away, so then I can lift this clay out of the way. In these inner parts too, I might cut like this first. And if you cut and your edges get a little bit messed up, that's not a problem. Water would go ahead and easily smooth that out. So I'm kind of doing this little sawing motion with the point just to get that out of the way. And so I cut, I lift that. Now my plan for firing these, meaning baking it, because this clay that we use has to get up to about 1800 degrees to be permanent, and obviously your home oven or any appliance is not going to do that. We use the large kiln, but I am going to do a primitive firing, what it's called in like a fire pit. If you pack it correctly, meaning delaying the heat, so I pack it in sawdust and underneath and burn on top of it for a while, it will then slowly build up the heat and get hot enough to fire it. So that's my plan for these, since we don't have access to our kiln. We'll kind of see how they come out. Part of it's an experiment, so if it doesn't work out super great, that's okay. I'll learn something from it and have fun making it. So I'm just slowly taking my time cutting them out. Now he is hairy, so I want to make sure I kind of leave some of those marks after I'm done. So I pull this, I pull all of that. Okay. Then I would be ready to start to sculpt the face. Let me bring it in a little closer here. For this too, I like to then have my reference drawing, if I can pick it up, here to kind of look at to create the images. Now, your clay at this point too, if you're using this kind of clay, it might be very soft, so it might be, your details might get a little bit lost at first. And then what you just kind of do is let it slowly dry out a little bit, and you come back to it, maybe 30 minutes later, and you can start to work on it again a little bit as it's dried out. So I'm going to kind of just go ahead and mark where the parts of the face might be. So if I bring down where his brow line is here, his nose. The fun part about this project, I think, too, is that you can really exaggerate some of the features. And since it's Bigfoot, you can really look a lot of different ways. So I'm just kind of making the marks of where his eyes might be. Going in here now, again, kind of going eye for ear, because he's furry, and I want to kind of give the idea of a lot of hair. I want to make almost these zigzag patterns that are like coming like down. Your hair would be growing from like the top down. And his arm would be here, so maybe at the shoulder I'd put some zigzags. Now here, the way he's walking is this shoulder is actually in front of his body, so I might bring my line down like this. That's his hand. He would have one finger here. I'd kind of see the other one on that side. Some more. Now his chest here is in front, so I'm going to try to draw that line like a zigzagged line. Now here, this leg is actually in front. So I kind of put there's his knee, put some furry lines here. Now for the ankle, I kind of like the ones where you stop the fur like right above the foot. So then his foot actually is like like a normal human's foot without any hair on it. So here I might put the idea of the ankle, a little mark. Go back up here, this is his hand. So here I was kind of give the idea of like his thumb. These would be like his other fingers, and again, kind of stop the hair at the wrist a little bit. Okay. So I might pause it there, and I can update and upload like a picture of the finished one when it's carving. But I feel like this just gives us kind of like a fun idea, how to work with clay if you're going to do like a slab sculpture with this. Again, a lot of different materials would work out well for the project, but have fun with it, and I'll be excited to see what you guys make. All right, see you later.